Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 6 of the Air Exchange. I am your host, Bruce Larange, and I have the pleasure today of having with me Barun Aggarwal, our guest, who is kind enough to be joining us from India, which is later in the day. So thank you, Barun. But I wanted to welcome you to the show and thank you for making time from your busy schedule.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Really appreciate you having us over on the show. Really excited. Thank you for scheduling this and being flexible about the timings. A little late in the evening in India, but really excited and charged to go this evening.
Excellent. Well, thank you. And Barun, I'm very excited to get into our conversation and talk a bit about air quality matters, especially as relate to the India market. But before doing so, for our listeners, I was hoping you could share a bit about your background. Again, I know you are the CEO and founder of Breathe Easy Consultants in Delhi, and have read some of the interesting parts of your bio. But perhaps you could share a little bit for our audience about your background and how you've come to be a voice in thought leadership in the India market related to air quality and indoor air quality specifically.
Thank you, Bruce. The background is actually very, very varied. I've had the pleasure and the experience of working in multiple continents in multiple industries, starting from consulting to commodities trading to cutting edge technology, selling a MiG-21 flight simulator to the Indian Air Force and doing video on demand installations in all of Europe, to
Wow.
working on sustainability and air quality in India over the last 11 years now. I've been so varied in what I've done that I've been called an eclectic personality. But I think with air quality and with sustainability, I've truly have found my calling, and I think this is what I'm going to take to my grave as well. It's just a business out of passion more than it is about the money, and the lives that we're able to touch and the difference that we're able to make is what keeps me going on an everyday basis. So a lot of varied things in the past, which I'm not going to get into, but air quality is something over the last 11 years that when I decided, I really took a deep dive into the technology on the research side of things. I studied the subject for 6 months before I started the business. And literally, in a sense, with modestly, I say it, that we literally started an industry in India on air quality. So my father-in-law has been working on this issue for the last 40 years. And that was a big help where it allowed me the platform from a research perspective to take it forward. So that was very important for the start of Breathe Easy when we started.
Fantastic. I mean, that's a very fun introduction, self-introduction. We usually don't have guests with quite the eclectic background, so I appreciate that. And in many ways, I think we have some similarities, Barun, in how we found our way to this very important topic, subject matter. And I'm interested to understand a little more about the origin story of Breathe Easy Labs or Industries or consultancy. So maybe you can share, you made mention of your father-in-law, I believe, and his history and building a foundation. Can you share a little bit more about the foundational story, the beginnings of Breathe Easy and how that came about for you?
Absolutely. So I think there's a few little tidbits that became the highlight of how the Breathe Easy story began. And I'd like to just mention a few of them. It starts with my father-in-law nearly 40 years ago in the city of Delhi working on air pollution. His doctors told him that he needed to leave Delhi because his lungs were giving way. Being a large industrial family of Delhi, that was not an easy option for him. So he set out doing research, working with IIT Delhi, which is one of the premier educational institutes of India, with NASA, and some of the top Lawrence Berkeley National Labs, and coming up with solutions and technologies. And he planted 2,000 natural plants in his office building to fix the air quality, along with some basic mechanical filtration technologies for a large office building, about 70,000 square feet. And turns out he was able to fix the air quality. The Central Pollution Control Board of India did a study in his building where they measured oxygen levels and did a whole bunch of other studies of the occupants in that building over a period of 2 years. And they took two other buildings as control studies, and they published a study after 2 years showing that building that he had worked on, the Paharpur Business Center, was literally the healthiest building of Delhi as per the Central Pollution Control Board. So he was very happy. His lung capacities had improved. His health was better. The doctors said, keep doing whatever you're doing. You can continue to live in Delhi. Fast forward, he continued his environmental journey and on sustainability and saved the planet. He's even the trustee for Al Gore's foundation in India, the Climate Reality Project today. He started multiple foundations on Save the Trees. He fixed the benzene levels of Delhi. And 2010, his daughter and we were married in 2002. We decided to come back to India from the United States. We come back, and another critical thing happened. Both our children, when we moved back from the US, started developing some sort of a cough, borderline asthma, breathing issues. My wife started getting a chronic cough, even though she had grown up in Delhi, but living in the US for 11 years and coming back to Delhi, she started getting a chronic cough. And we said, we got to do something. And she goes to her dad and says, I'm going to move back to the US unless you can fix this for me. So he gets down to doing some research and I help him. And we start to figure out air filters and room air purifiers and try to see how we can help her and the kids. And we find something, there weren't very many available in India. Literally, with great difficulty, we found 2 machines in India, 2 companies that were in the market at the time. And they were so happy to sell us 2 machines. They were like, you've made our day, right? Because there was nobody who understood the concept or even bought an air purifier at the time. I decided to take a sabbatical. I was gone for a year because I was running a business in the US. I was traveling 20 days to the US, 20 days India. Got tired for 5 years doing that. And I decided to go up to the mountains. I was up in the middle of Yamunotri, which is a mountain town in India, a religious mountain town. And I woke up one morning after a very long spell of rain to crystal clear blue skies. And I contrasted that with the gray skies of Delhi. And I said, something's got to give. I just don't, I recall seeing these blue skies in the West when I was traveling to Europe, in the US, but I just haven't seen these for the last year and a half, 2 years in Delhi. And why is this the case? And suddenly it pawned upon me about my father-in-law's research on air quality. And I said, we got to do something for others as well. You know, he's done it for himself. And literally I packed my bags and I came back to Delhi and I went to him and I said, you've done it for your building. What about helping others? Why aren't you doing this for others? And he says, I've got enough on my plate. You've taken sabbatical. It's high time. Get back to the work, get back to work. And why don't you start something on this? And I was like, okay, I'm not even an engineer. I've got a business degree, but sure, let's think about it. And I started studying the topic, and 6 months I just studied and understood. And luckily we had all the technology, the machines to measure air quality, the understanding of what it is, the research topics were there, all his research was there. And in 6 months, I decided to launch Breathe Easy. January 1, 2013 is when we started. And 8 months of Breathe Easy, our sum total revenue, a total of 0. Nobody believed that air quality was a thing, that air pollution was a thing. And we had a tough time, and everybody in my family thought I'd lost it. I'd lost my marbles, that I'm trying to sell clean air. I'm trying to clean pollution, which is invisible typically, right? And there's a saying in India, in Hindi, which converts to saying, if you can't see it, you can't sell it. So everybody was like, he's never going to sell anything. He doesn't want to do anything. That's why he's trying to sell this, because he'll never sell anything. So long story short, then and today, it's become an industry. I've been lucky and fortunate to become part of the standards that have been created around air quality. The ISHRAE standard, the USGBC standard on how to measure air quality. I've been lucky to be part of committees that have created those standards. The COVID guidance document that is today used as a protocol for the Prime Minister and President of India, the air quality part was written by me. So a lot of work has happened over the last few years in terms of thought leadership. And a lot of it goes to my father-in-law in terms of the research that he had done, and then the tenacity of really creating an industry and a business out of nothing is what I got to the table. And today we've really made a difference to a lot of lives. And that's what makes me happy.
Barun, that's a very inspiring story. It's fantastic to hear how you took that call to action and turned it into such a mission. And of course, I can't think of anything more important given what we know now, and especially given our focus on air quality, both ambient and indoor air quality, and its impact on human health. So congratulations for that journey. It's pretty exciting, and thanks for sharing the origin story. It might be good, since many of our listeners are based in the US or North America, maybe they're less familiar with the challenges in air quality in India. If you can share a bit about the sources and really what's happening, what the landscape looks like, and why the air quality is so challenging. I know I've read, and there's multiple news articles and reports and all sorts of information related to the challenges in ambient air quality that are happening, including a recent article that I read, semi-recent in 2022, that said that in Delhi, which is quite often the most polluted or heavily particulate-laden air in the world, that there could even be an aggregate of 10 years of loss of life based on the impact of to health based on air quality, which is quite alarming. So maybe you can take a moment to share a bit about the landscape, what's happening, and then maybe help us understand how that's impacting people's understanding of the relationship between health and air quality in India.
Sure, that's a huge topic in itself. In terms of the contrast, it's incredible. I have a lot of expat clients, Bruce, and they'll tell me we can smell the air pollution, we can taste it on our lips. And we have Indians who are like, oh, we're used to this, we grew up in this, nothing's going to happen to us. But the numbers, the statistics are unbelievable. I mean, just for reference, in the United States, I was in Boston, and the PM 2.5 levels in Boston on that particular day were at 3 micrograms per cubic meter. Clear blue skies, 3 micrograms per cubic meter. It was a cold winter day, because a lot of times in Delhi, they blame the winters for the pollution because of the temperature inversion, and it just settles all the cool air down. Delhi on the same day was 144 micrograms per cubic meter. I was in Davos for the World Economic Forum, and there's a television interview done by NDTV, an Indian channel, and the reading in Davos on that particular day outdoors was 0 micrograms per cubic meter. In the hills in Switzerland, I don't expect anything worse. In Delhi on the same day, it was 245 micrograms per cubic meter. The safe levels for PM 2.5 exposure, as you mentioned earlier, is 5 micrograms per cubic meter as per the WHO. So when you're exposed to numbers like 240 on a regular basis, I'm not talking about the apocalypse that we see on a every year basis when it gets to 600, 700, 800, and there are days when it gets 999 and the sensors stop giving us readings because it doesn't go any higher than that. We have days like that as well. The visibility is less than 30 meters because of the, people call it smog. Earlier people used to call it fog, then they call it smog, but in reality it's just smoke. There's no bit of fog in there at all. It's all smoke. And that's a reality. Every year we get to that, and when it gets to that condition, that's when people wake up and they say, oh my God, what do I do? Can I buy an air purifier today? And then that month, when it's really bad, we go crazy trying to sell air purifiers. And the rest of the year, 11 months, people don't care two hoots about it, even though the average for the year in Delhi is about 180 micrograms per cubic meter. That's how bad it is. So from a reference perspective, we need to be closer to 5, 10 at most, but we're at 180 on average. We're close to 200, 300, 400 for the entire winter period, which is October till February. And people over here just don't understand the health impact. And you're right, we've lost 10 years of our lives by virtue of living here. There's a great video I saw today from a pulmonologist, Dr. Arvind Kumar, who talks about the impact of that pollution. And he says, typically people start smoking when they're in their late teens or early 20s. So by the time the impact of that smoke gets to their lungs and they start to get lung cancer, it takes 20 to 30 years for that impact. They're in their 50s and 60s. But when a child is born in Delhi, by breathing the air in Delhi, it's equivalent to smoking cigarettes. So 20 or 30 years of that impact of living in Delhi He's starting to see lung cancer cases with kids in their 20s now because they've been exposed to this air for 20 years. That's the impact of all
Wow.
of this, what we're breathing over here. And I'm only talking about one pollutant right now, PM 2.5. I haven't even started on the other pollutants like the VOCs, like the gases that we have outside. We've tested for hydrogen sulfide, we've tested for ammonia, we've tested for chlorine, sulfur dioxide, nitrogen dioxide, ozone. All of these are above the safe levels typically in a lot of northern India. And this is not just an urban problem in India and Delhi, it's across the board in the country. There's a map which was shown to be by Professor Joshua Apte, one of the leading air quality scientists in the world. And he showed the mortality from particulate matter in the United States and India. In the US, it was mostly blue with shades of pink and little red on the eastern seaboard. In India, it was all red with deep red across the Indo-Gangetic belt. So mortality from air pollution is one of the leading causes of death in India. The health impact of it, the economic cost of it is tremendous. And that's what we need to understand, and we need to really do something about it.
It's staggering to hear the statistics, even knowing a bit and having read and also been in parts of the world, notably China, where I've experienced pretty extreme PM 2.5 and particulate numbers. But it seems to me that there would be a very large awareness and desire to change behaviors. And since 2013, mentioning that when you got started with Breathe Easy, that there wasn't necessarily a market there. How are you seeing over the years since you started Breathe Easy and really looked at this issue, behavior changes? Are you seeing people starting to recognize the health impact and take it more seriously, or what sort of behavioral changes are you seeing related to the sort of awakening around information related to air quality in India?
I say this with a heavy heart, in a sense that unfortunately in India, people don't really get the whole situation. They get the gravity of the situation when it comes to air pollution. There's very, very few. Initially, for the first couple of years, it was mostly expat clients who lived in India and understood the problem because they traveled a lot. And then it was the ultra HNIs, the high net worth individuals, who would be traveling abroad frequently. Every time they travel out, they would feel the difference. And when they come back, they would understand the difference. And they'd say, okay, I know what this means. I know how it feels. I want to do something about it. And slowly that trickle down effect has happened, but still nowhere close to what needs to happen in a country like India. We're a country of too many people, right? The numbers are staggering. Today, I say the business of air quality is not even touching 0.00001% of that population. And that's where we need to do something about it, because the masses who are probably the most impacted, because they can't do much about it, they live in homes which are very leaky, and hence the impact of that air pollution, the outdoor pollutants, is very, very high on them. They are the ones most impacted, and they're the ones who don't even understand or can't even afford solutions. And that's where a lot of work has to go in.
Yeah, I fully appreciate that, and all the more important the work that you're doing and the gravity of it, Barun. I did remember reading in your bio as well that you are behind an NGO, and so I was hoping we could touch on that a bit. But it leads me to the question around public-private partnerships, government sort of awareness campaigns, or is there, in your view, do you think that there's enough push around education and trying to help with understanding and generating more awareness to take more action in India? Or maybe you can speak specifically to your part in that, or the community that you're a part of, trying to advance the understanding around air quality and public health.
Sure. So we, very early on in the day when we started Breathe Easy, within a couple of years, a lot of people who were passionate about the issue because they understood it reached out and said, we need to do something for the greater good. And we came together as a group of parents initially who said, okay, let's start something, just awareness. And reach out to school children, talk to them, give presentations to them. So I took my corporate presentation, I tweaked it completely from a not-for-profit perspective, just from an education perspective. And we made that as our baseline for our Care for Air mission. We called the not-for-profit at the time Care for Air. We're very, I have to say that we just a few weeks ago, we finally got our ATG and 10AB certifications, which are similar to the US certifications where you can now start getting funding to start doing real work. So for the last 6 years, we've been completely self-funded and doing whatever little work we can ourselves, but now we've got that capability to get funding, and we hope to do some better work in that space. So the mission for Care for Air was awareness, advocacy, and change. Awareness, where we go out to school children and we create awareness about the problem of air pollution. We teach them what they can do and what the government needs to do. We ended up creating student ambassadors because we couldn't get to as many schools ourselves. So we created student ambassadors who would go out to schools themselves and teach more and more children. The second one was advocacy. We had Supreme Court lawyers on our board at Care for Air who would file public interest litigation in the Supreme Court of India for our right to clean air. And that's an ongoing litigation process which has been going on, and multiple issues have been addressed. And we've had a couple of wins through that process in the Supreme Court of India. And I'll give you one example where we moved from the Euro 6 fuel in India, it's called Bharat Stage 6 fuel. We moved from Euro 4 to Euro 6, so we leapfrogged Euro 5 altogether. And earlier we had a timeline of 2024, but because of the litigation we put in and the conversations we had in the Supreme Court, they were able to pull it back to 2021. And today all of India is on a better quality fuel, which reduces the emissions at a larger scale. So those are small wins that we've had in the Supreme Court. And the third is change, right? Awareness, advocacy, and change. Now that we have the funding, we're looking at creating change programs where we'll take on small projects where we can actually impact real change in the field and reduce the air pollution that we know is there in certain areas because of certain issues that we see around us in our cities and our villages in India. So Care for Air has been a really great platform to create awareness. We've done a bunch of public-private partnerships. The government of India is also working on this issue, but at the end of the day, as a citizen, I'll always say not enough, right? We always want more because the air is still really bad. But they have created a GRAP, which the Prime Minister's office gets reported to on the issue around pollution on a regular basis. They've got a whole program in terms of GRAP 1, 2, 3, 4, depending on the air quality results in a particular city. Certain measures kick in automatically with regards to automobiles, public transportation, usage of certain odd even vehicles, a whole bunch of other things. Diesel generator sets get banned. A whole bunch of other things start to come into play as the air quality worsens to try and reduce that load. Helps a little bit, but there's still a lot more that needs to be done.
Wow, it's the ambitious plans that you have and all the activities around your work are seriously inspiring. Being part of the filtration industry and being based in the U.S., of course, we're very cued into the importance of filtering out the air in your home or in public buildings, but of course we're not dealing with the severity generally of the air quality issues by any stretch that you are and that the public is in India. So I'm very, very impressed and certainly appreciate all the work that you're doing, Barun, which couldn't be more important. To speak a bit to solutions related to how to keep the public safer, something that crossed my mind, and to get a bit more technical about the solution side of how to keep the air clean. I know in the US, for example, in homes, typically people have furnaces or forced hot air systems, AC units, and they're filtering, using that system as the method to filter air within the home. In India, my understanding is that's not common, if even at all, something that is usually in residences, or there's more split air systems and such. So how do people go about during this process of hopefully advocacy and improvement of ambient air quality through larger efforts that the country is taking. In the meantime, how are people going about trying to keep indoor environments clean? Can you share a bit about what you advise for your clients and what would be kind of a typical solution for India residential and commercial buildings?
Sure. So first thing to understand, Bruce, is that 95% of India lives on natural ventilation, no air conditioning, open windows, and it's really, really hard to come up with solutions for that faction of the country. Uh, the smaller percentage that lives in closed spaces and they have better quality homes. Still, some of them, a lot of them are leaky because the quality of windows and doors are not the best. They're the old wooden windows, which are pretty leaky around the edges. Our doors have little 1, 2, 3 millimeter, sometimes even half an inch, 1 inch gaps at the bottom. So they're pretty leaky. So solutions for these kinds of homes gets challenging. Just putting a simple air purifier that you get on the market does not give you the kind of results that you want, right? Because of that leaky nature of the homes. You put in an air purifier, even on high speed, the noise becomes an issue, and you're dealing with that loud humming noise and still not able to get the readings down, because when it is 600, 500, 400 outside, even with an air purifier running inside, your readings aren't coming below 100. People are pretty happy when it's 100 inside, saying, oh, it's 500 outside, it's 100 or 150 inside, I'm happy. And that's when we come in and we say, it's 0 in my home, it's 0 in my office, and we can get there. So technically, it's possible. Initially, when I started off, even I had a simple room air purifier, and I was very happy that, okay, I'm able to achieve 50, 60, 70 when it's 500 outside. But I kept working on that solution. I kept trying to figure out how to make it better. And today we've reached a point where we're able to get to 0. Literally 0 in my home, 0 in my office, 0 in pretty much every facility that we work with today is able to get to 0 or pretty close to 0. The AQI is very commonly known now. We're able to keep it in the green zone in indoor spaces, even when the air outside is apocalyptic, as they call it. So the solutions are really twofold, right? One is, and the most important, is to create a little bit of positive air pressure. So we bring in air from outdoors, which is really dirty. And I wanted to show you, I don't know if you'll be able to see it, but I'm going to show you one picture. This is a photograph of a filter in my home. The top one is a used filter, which is black. And the bottom one is a new filter, which is white. And that's what happens when you bring in air from outside. Within a couple of months, that's what happens to that filter. Now, I'm bringing in air from outside, I clean it through multiple layers of filtration, and I push that into the room. So I'm able to get a little bit positive pressure, which ensures that even my leaky windows and doors don't come into play because air starts to leak out rather than come inside the room. So I've created that little positive air pressure, little bubble. The second thing that we do is ensure that we are bringing in that fresh air, which reduces the CO2 and dilutes the VOCs, because these air purifiers, the typical room air purifiers, they're just recirculating the room within the air within the room. And typically the CO2 levels within one bedroom, because we don't have a whole home system. Our air conditioners in India are individual room split air conditioners. They're just for that room, and they recirculate the air within the room. The whole home furnaces, they're throwing air into every room, pulling air from every room, and so the CO2 levels also start to get diluted across the house, and the readings don't go very high. In our one bedroom, the CO2 levels were getting to 3,000 parts per million at night, when anything over 800, as per some of the latest studies and standards, is not good for our brain. It's not good it makes you lethargic. You wake up feeling tired and as if you didn't get a good night's sleep. So with this forced air system, we're able to get the CO2 to 600 parts per million. We're able to get the AQI and the PM 2.5 to pretty much 0. And that really, really makes a huge difference. And most importantly, we also take care of the gases, because if you don't filter out the harmful gases that are outside, and you constantly bring them in, you're creating another problem. And a lot of companies in India, there's no regulation here in terms of what technologies can be sold or not. And there's no barrier to entry, because everybody can become an air quality expert so easily today. that people will start selling solutions which are not totally holistic in nature. So they fix one problem, but they create two others in the process. And that can be a huge challenge sometimes.
Yeah, that's very helpful to understand, and also to understand the landscape of buildings and how homes and buildings are constructed. And that challenge of ventilation, of course, ventilation previously in different standards, you would see the language of bringing in fresh air from outside. But as we know, not only in India, but in many environments, outside air is not necessarily fresh air and needs filtration. But it's fantastic to
Sorry, I'm interrupting. So on that fresh air piece, what I explained to everybody over here is that there are two components to air: fresh air versus stale air, and clean air versus dirty air. So the outside
very
air is
nice.
fresh, even in India, but it's dirty. So we bring in the fresh air, but we clean the dirt, and now we have clean fresh air versus stale dirty air or stale clean air. So that little differentiation between fresh and dirty is very important, I thought.
I think that's a great dichotomy, and certainly the image that you shared on your phone, for anyone who says that they can't see the problem of air pollution, I think you only need to show them that photo to, as a reminder that it's a very tangible problem. It's not as invisible as we often might think. Barun, I'm really enjoying this conversation and learning a lot. And so, given the time, I want to make sure that we give you the opportunity to just share anything in general that you think would be important for our listeners to know, given the work that you're doing and the state of air quality and IAQ in India, and perhaps anything related to where you see things moving in the future, and the things that make you optimistic about improving the situation.
Oh boy, that's
No,
that's a
no
loaded
pressure.
one.
Just a little question there to close out our interview.
Sure. So, it's like I said, I started off saying this is not a business for me. It's a passion project. And unfortunately, I think COVID really created a huge opportunity for many companies globally around air filtration and air quality. But I think India lagged far behind. A lot of fake technologies were introduced in India, which were cheaper, and people started buying those, and the real technologies didn't really get their fair share of the market. In India, people are still not certain about the problem in their minds. They think that their immunity will come down if they breathe clean air for 8 hours in their homes. How do you step out in polluted air if I'm breathing clean air at home? That little dilemma is there in a lot of people's heads. Having said that, the problem in India, Bruce, we've not even hit the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the problem in terms of the gases, in terms of particulate matter. We're only talking about PM 2.5s. I'm very, very worried about the nanoparticles and the ultrafine particles right now in India. And so the problem is so vast that I think that the long-term opportunity for filtration in India is tremendous. We have today, India is one of the fastest growing economies. We are growing buildings, green building standards, and we have multiples of them are competing in the Indian market. And as these buildings, high quality buildings are coming up, filtration is becoming part of a standard protocol for many of them. Today, good organizations and companies are making that as part of the USP, saying air quality is something that we really care about, and that's what we want to give to our customers, give to our employees, give to our occupants in our buildings. And so the opportunity in the long run, I don't think there's any other place better than India today when it comes to the opportunity, because the problem is the biggest and the number of people are the largest. They have the ability to buy, they have the ability to spend the money. It's just that awareness, that understanding of the problem, and yes, there is a real solution, and you got to pay for it, and you get what you pay for is what they need to understand. And when they get that, then they're ready to pay for the real money for the real solutions. It's a great opportunity. I think the business will grow many-fold in the years to come. But one of the key things, even today, even after 11 years of doing this, I say what we need is more awareness, more real data, more research around this subject, that people can understand more easily. I have enough research, but disseminating that research with a small company that doesn't have the pockets of large organizations to do big advertising becomes challenging. And that awareness building we're doing at the grassroots levels, how do you get it to a much larger audience, and how do you make it more affordable also in terms of solutions? Because like I said, 95% of households live with natural ventilation, and with outdoor air pollution being as it is, it's not easy to fix that problem. So awareness is the number one step, and then the second step after that will be to make solutions that are a lot more affordable for India. And literally, I say the sky is the limit.
Well, I'm hoping this is the first of many conversations that we have, Barun. I'm personally, again, very, very interested in the work that you're doing, and congratulate you on all of your efforts and the journey that you're on. I know it's a long one, but thank you very much for taking time to be with us today and sharing some information for our listeners. If our listeners are interested to learn a bit more about your NPO, the NGO Care for Air, can you share where the best place is to get information on that?
Yeah, it's www.careforair.org. So it's CAREFORAIR, careforair.org is our website, and it's a little dated. We've just got our funding. We'll get a lot of information updated in the next couple of months, hopefully. But it's dated, but it's still relevant, I would say.
Well, fantastic, and congratulations on that as well, Barun. And until we next speak, please be well and stay safe, and good luck with your continued advocacy and spearheading thought leadership in India around this very important topic. And thanks again for taking the time to be with us on the Air Exchange today.
Thank you so much, Bruce. Really appreciate it. Really enjoyed being on the show, and would be happy to come back anytime. Thank you again.
Thank you. And to our listeners, thank you as well for being with us. Today is episode 6 of the Air Exchange, so this concludes season 1. So thank you for those of you who have been listening since our first episode, and hopefully if you found today's episode as interesting as I did, please do like and share with those that you think would be interested as well. And until our next season and the next episode, I thank you all and wish you healthy and happy breathing. Thank you.